Hello everyone, I am Bruce and welcome to another video on Congress Weekly. Thank you for tuning in. This video is going to cover in more detail House Resolution 127 entitled The Licensing of Firearm and Ammunition Possession and the Registration of Firearms and to prohibit the possession of certain ammunition. So why cover this one? Well, first, this bill was introduced 2 days prior to the riot on the Capitol. Interesting. Second, this has only been introduced in the House, so it has a ways to go. But if enacted, we will see drastic changes to having a firearm. Third, this past Thursday, January 28th, House Speaker Pelosi said that members of Congress are not only facing threats from the outside, but are also at risk from members of Congress who want to bring guns to the floor and have threatened violence against their colleagues, saying the enemy is within the House of Representatives. Really? Now we all know that that isn't the case, so why say all this? Well, remember, the House Speaker has been in politics a long time, since 1987 as a member of the House of Representatives. It is my opinion she calculated discussing this topic on January 28th for a reason, to give weight to this proposed bill. So let's get into it. I won't cover everything, but we'll cover areas that you should know what is being considered. If you don't possess a gun, this probably won't get you excited unless you are concerned with the direction Congress wants to go. If you do own a gun, get ready for some surprises. And keep in mind, this won't affect the criminals, only the law-abiding citizens. According to the proposed bill, the Attorney General, through the Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, otherwise known as ATF, shall establish a system for licensing the possession of firearms or ammunition in the United States, and for registration with ATF of each firearm present in the United States. Yes, I said each firearm. Under the firearm registration system, the owner of the firearm shall transmit to ATF the make, model, and serial number of the firearm. Okay, so far. The identity of the owner of the firearm. Now, consider this. What will be considered the identity? My guess is your address, county, phone number, and don't be surprised if you have to list other individuals who would have access to your firearm. The date of the firearm was acquired by the owner and where the firearm is or will be stored. Now, I wonder how detailed they will want you to provide where it is being stored. You also will have to provide a notice specifying the identity of any person whom and the period of time during which the firearm will be loaned to a person. If all that doesn't get you excited, here is one of the scary parts. The Attorney General shall establish and maintain a database of all firearms registered. The AG shall make the contents of the database accessible to, and get this, to all members of the public. Yes, you did hear me correctly. Also, to all federal, state, and local law enforcement authorities, and all branches of the United States Armed Forces and all state and local governments. Wow. Here comes some of the details that might make you cringe, if not already. The Attorney General shall issue to an individual a license to possess a firearm and ammunition if the individual has attained 21 years of age and after applying for the license undergoes a criminal background check. Well, that is no big deal. Now get this. Undergoes a psychological evaluation. More on this a little later. Successfully completes a training course that includes at least 24 hours of training, so expect to be in training a minimum of 3 days. and demonstrates that on issuance of the license, the individual will have in effect an insurance policy issued. What in the world is that? More to follow shortly. The bill also covers details about having an antique firearm display and having military-style weapons, and the requirements are mostly the same as the basic firearm. Now, back to the psychological evaluation. It will be conducted by a licensed psychologist, and as deemed necessary by the psychologist involved, the evaluation will evaluate other members of the household in which the individual resides. As part of the psychological evaluation, the psychologist can interview any spouse of the individual, which means to include former spouses and at least 2 other persons who are a member of the family of or an associate of the individual to further determine the state of the mental and emotional stability of the individual in relation to the firearms. The bill does state the licensed psychologist has to be approved by the Attorney General, but nowhere does it say the cost of seeing the psychologist will be paid for by the government. In my opinion, it will be the gun owners. Again, this is House Resolution 127. So, how long does your license last until renewal? The bill is not clear on this. Best I can tell, it needs renewed every 3 or 5 years. What then? Well, you have to complete another training course that lasts at least 8 hours. If you aren't sitting on the edge of your chair or scratching your head, here comes even more astounding news. Remember when I said you would need firearms insurance? It is supposed to insure the person against liability for losses and damages resulting from the use of any firearm by the person. That just doesn't make sense to me. I'm sure that will be clarified. But get this, the insurance will cost you $800. Yes, $800. What the bill doesn't state is if that is for just one firearm or pay for that amount for all that you may have. The bill also doesn't state if you have to pay that each time of license renewal. You would think I was making this all up. The bill then lists what military-style weapons are. It is a long list. It then covers semi-automatic rifles, semi-automatic pistols, semi-automatic shotguns. It appears you can still own these, but you have to meet the firearms requirements. The bill does say a license won't be issued if the person does not pass the psychological evaluation, but I didn't read what happens if a person doesn't take the required training. It could be in there. My opinion is the person won't receive the license. Then, what happens to the firearms? We'll get ready for this. The person must surrender all firearms and ammunition owned or possessed by the individual to the Attorney General. If this bill would pass the House, Senate, and signed by the President, it all has to then be implemented within 1 year of the signing. So, what if a person doesn't follow this law? What's it going to cost them? Here again, I recommend sitting down. And what I am about to cover is the minimum fines and penalties. Whoever knowingly violates the law shall be fined not less than $75,000. I kid you not. And not more than $150,000, imprisoned not less than 15 years and not more than 25 years, or both. And I didn't even get into what is involved if you loan someone your firearm. Without notifying the Attorney General, there are fines associated with that, and even higher fines if the person uses the firearm against someone or used during a crime, an unintentional shooting, or suicide. In any of these cases, the person who loaned the firearm shall be fined not less than $100,000 and not more than $150,000, imprisoned not less than 25 years, and not more than 40 years, or both. Finally, it states it shall be unlawful for any person to possess ammunition that is 50 caliber or greater. Using that caliber is mostly for machine guns, but some gun manufacturers make smaller firearms that can use this size caliber. It shall also be unlawful for any person to possess a large capacity ammunition feeding device. So, what is that classified as? It means a magazine, belt, drum, feed strip, or similar device that has the capacity of, or that can be readily restored or converted to accept more than 10 rounds, yes, 10 rounds of ammunition. There is an exception if using 22 caliber rimfire ammunition. In conclusion, there are state laws in effect that cover firearms. As one example, in Montana, they are wanting to change theirs, but from what I read, it would become less strict rather than more strict. So, which laws supersede the other? In most cases, federal supersedes state. Well, thank you for watching. Again, that was House Resolution 127 that I was covering. If you like my videos under Congress Weekly, please click the thumbs up and subscribe. You can also leave your thoughts by using the email address shown at the bottom of the screen. Until my next video, please be safe.